I didn't cry when I got the call that I was sitting alone in a metal container turned into a communications hub, thousands of miles from everything I'd ever called home. The heat outside was unbearable, desert sun bleeding through the walls, turning the air thick and stale. The generator hummed a low, mechanical lullaby that I'd grown used to. I was halfway through writing a daily report when my satellite phone lit up. Unknown number that I knew. Before I picked it up, I knew. The voice on the other end was calm, respectful, military trained, just like mine. Words chosen carefully, almost sterile. Sergeant Miller, I'm sorry to inform you. Your father passed away earlier this morning. Just like that. No gunshot. No crash. No drama. Just morning. I stared at the wall. It was scratched up with names and dates from the soldiers who'd sat here before me. One of them, in faded ink, had written, "We survive by holding our breath." I felt that I didn't say anything. Didn't ask for details. Didn't curse or scream. I just nodded, like I'd been given coordinates or weather data. I even said, "Copy that." Before hanging up, that's how trained I was, to feel nothing. Until it's safe to feel, but no one tells you that some feelings wait for you. They sit there, patient, like landmines buried under routine. It had been 9 months since I'd seen him. The last time was in Virginia, right before deployment. He showed up late to the airport, holding a coffee like we were meeting for a casual breakfast. He hugged me like a friend who hadn't learned how to stay long. Said he was proud, told me to be careful. He never was the emotional type. He spoke like a man who thought feelings were a luxury, and I guess for him, they were. After Mom died, something in him dried up. He worked. He watched the news. He grilled steak in the backyard in silence. I grew up learning more about him from the tools in the garage than from the man himself. I think I spent most of my life trying to impress. A ghost, a man present in body but always somewhere else in spirit. And now, just like that, the body was gone too. For the rest of the day, no one knew. I didn't tell my unit. I didn't want the condolences, the looks, the "are you okay?" pity dripping from every syllable. Out here, in the dust and the noise, there's no space for grief. You bury it the same way you bury shrapnel, deep enough that it doesn't slow you down. That night, I sat on my cot, boots still on, staring at the ceiling of the tent. My hands were steady, but something inside me wasn't. It was like a quiet knocking from the inside that I kept hearing his voice in the airport, the way he said, "You've always done more than I expected, son." That was it. That was his version of "I love you." And I held on to it like a photograph that would fade if I stared too long. Sleep didn't come. My mind wandered to the past. The times I thought I hated him, the times I knew I didn't. The silence at dinner. The times he chose discipline over softness. The way he always sat in the same chair, like it anchored him to something invisible that I didn't know if there'd be a funeral. I didn't even know what he left behind, if anything. My sister, Lauren, was handling it. She'd stayed in Virginia, near him. They were closer. At least, that's what I assumed. But even she didn't know him fully. No one did. He was the kind of man who left rooms before conversations ended. 3 days later, I got a message through the secure line. It was from Lauren. It just said, "He left something for you. I'm mailing it to base." Handwritten. Said only you would understand. That was all. No warning. No hint of what was inside. A week passed. And then one morning, after a sandstorm that coated everything in amber dust, I found a small package on my bunk. No return address. My name written in ink, smudged at the corners. Inside, there was a single envelope. The paper was aged, sealed with red tape, the kind he used in the garage to mark things he didn't want anyone touching. It smelled like old books and wood oil. I held it for a long time before opening it. My hands trembled, not because I was afraid of what he'd written, but because I wasn't sure I was ready to hear his voice again, not the cold one I grew up with, but the one he'd saved for his last words. I opened the letter, and within the first 2 lines, I realized I never really knew the man who raised me. The handwriting was his, blocky, a little slanted, like someone trying to keep their emotions from slipping through the lines. The ink was blue, a little faded, but the paper had clearly been handled with care. No creases, no coffee stains. He had planned this. He had wanted it to survive the miles. "Son, if you're reading this, it means I'm gone. And if I know you at all, you probably didn't let anyone see you cry. You probably tucked your grief under your uniform and kept marching." I felt my throat tighten. There were a lot of things I didn't know how to say to you. I told myself it was because I was trying to make you strong, that if I gave you too much softness, you'd lose the edge you needed to survive in this world. But the truth is, I didn't know how to be soft. Not with you. Not with anyone. I was afraid. That word, afraid, coming from him felt like thunder in a sealed room. My father, the same man who once stood between a neighbor's angry dog and my 7-year-old self with nothing but a garden rake in his hand, afraid? You remind me of your mother. You never knew that, did you? It's not just your face. It's the way you carry weight that isn't yours. The way you try to fix everything before anyone asks you to. She was like that. Brave to a fault. My hands shook. I sat down slowly, as if the floor might disappear beneath me. My cot creaked. A breeze rustled the edge of the tent, hot and dusty. But in that moment, I was back in our old kitchen, watching Mom cut apples with a smile that never gave away how tired she was. After she died, I didn't know how to look at you without seeing her. And that's not fair. You were just a boy, but I didn't know how to be a father without her. I thought I was doing what was right, teaching you discipline, teaching you not to depend on anyone. But maybe I was just trying to not lose you too. The wind outside howled, lifting fine particles of sand through the seams of the tent. But I couldn't move. The words on the page were more vivid than anything around me. I watched you become a man, and I was proud. But I was also ashamed, because I knew I hadn't earned the place in your heart that a father should have. So I stayed quiet. I kept things buried. And then, the turn. But there's something else, son. Something I never told you. Something no one else knows. It's about your mother. My heart skipped. I told you she died in her sleep. Peaceful. That's what I needed you to believe. But that wasn't the truth. I stopped. Breathing. My eyes scanned the next line. Then again. Then again. She took her own life. The air left the room. I could feel my pulse in my ears, in my teeth, in the tips of my fingers. She'd been struggling for years. I saw it. I knew it. And I did nothing. I thought love was enough. I thought keeping the house clean, putting food on the table, pretending everything was normal. I thought that was enough. But love without presence is just silence. I didn't know how long I sat there. I don't remember putting the letter down. My body went cold, even in the oppressive heat. My thoughts spiraled. Images of her, the quiet sadness in her eyes, the way she would stare out the window long after the sun went down, saying nothing. How I'd once found her crying in the laundry room, holding one of my old baby blankets. I thought it was just grief. Grief for a life that felt too heavy. But now, it was something else. Something she carried in secret, and he knew. All those years. All that silence. He knew. But he said nothing. Not to me. Not to Lauren. Not to anyone. And now he was gone. And he left this truth for me, alone, halfway across the world, like a final confession from a man who couldn't bear to speak it aloud. That night, I didn't sleep. I couldn't. The next morning, I called Lauren through a secure video link. She was pale, tired. I asked if she had read the letter. She shook her head. No. He said it was for you. Only you. I hesitated, then said, "There's something I need to tell you." But the words didn't come. Not yet. Something in me needed to know more. Needed to understand why. Why now? Why like this? Because if he'd kept that truth hidden for so long, what else was buried? The days that followed blurred into a kind of slow, waking fog. I'd always thought pain was something sharp, loud, even. But this wasn't that. This pain was quiet, heavy, like walking waist deep through water, pretending you're not sinking. I carried that letter with me everywhere, folded, sealed back in its envelope, tucked inside the chest pocket of my uniform like a relic. Part of me wanted to burn it, like it might erase the truth. But a louder part, the part that hadn't stopped replaying my childhood in pieces, needed it close. Like proof that I hadn't imagined it all. And yet, something about the letter kept gnawing at me. It was too carefully written, too deliberate. He wasn't just unburdening guilt. He was pointing at something. Like a trailhead. A week later, I received another message from Lauren. She'd found a key. Dad's safety box. Your name was on the envelope it was in, she said through a fuzzy video call. But the bank's not giving me access until you sign a document. It's under your name only. That struck me as strange. My father never trusted banks. He kept his money in a fireproof box under the stairs. So why would he leave something locked up in a bank, with my name tied to it? I signed the digital forms. A day later, Lauren called again, holding up a small black box. She looked nervous. There's just one thing inside, she said, at a mini cassette tape. She turned it over in her hands like it might bite. There's a date written on it. August 13th, 2005. My blood went cold. That was the day my mom died. My voice came out hoarse. Play it. She hesitated. Are you sure? I nodded. Put it on speaker. The audio was crackly, warped by time, but the voice was unmistakable. It was hers. I don't know who I'm talking to. Maybe to myself. Maybe to you, Michael. Or maybe to the kids, someday. But I need to get this out before I disappear inside my own silence. I grabbed the edge of the cot so hard my knuckles whitened. I'm tired, she said. Tired. In a way sleep doesn't fix. I try to smile. I try to pretend. But I'm disappearing and no one sees it. Lauren's hand was over her mouth. She was crying silently now. I begged for help. Once. Years ago. And I was told to be strong. That it would pass. That I just needed to focus on the kids, on the house, on the good things. But depression doesn't care how many good things you have. It eats them, one by one. The static deepened. Then her voice returned, softer. Michael, I don't blame you. I know you didn't mean to become so distant. But I needed you. And I don't think you knew how to stay when I needed you most. There was a pause. Long, raw. Tell them the truth, if you can. Let them see me whole, not perfect. Let them know I loved them, even when I couldn't stay. Click. Silence. For a moment, I thought I'd lost all sound. But no, it was just the weight of the silence that followed. Like the world had leaned into my chest and exhaled everything I'd been holding in. Lauren looked at me. Eyes red. Voice trembling. He lied to both of us. I couldn't speak. That I just stood up and walked out of the tent into the searing sun. The ground was hot, cracked. The sky too wide. Everything too loud and too still at once. That I thought of my childhood again. Her smile. Yes, but also her absences. The way she'd forget where she put things. The way she'd stay in bed for days with migraines. The way Dad would shush us and say, your mom just needs rest. He knew she was unraveling, and he chose to hide it. To wrap her death in a story that was easier to swallow, not for us. For him. I leaned against a shipping container and stared at the horizon until it blurred. My mouth tasted like sand. My chest ached. It wasn't just about mourning anymore. It was about betrayal, and then I remembered something. A detail that had always felt strange, but never questioned until now, the day she died. Dad made us stay at a neighbor's house, said there was a gas leak, that we had to stay away until the firemen cleared it. But there was no smell, no fire truck, no repairs, and now, I couldn't stop wondering, what if she tried before? What if that tape wasn't a goodbye, but a warning? And what if he wasn't just hiding a truth, but covering up a choice? I couldn't let it go. That one memory, the gas leak excuse, looped in my head like a drumbeat. A cover story so flimsy, so unnecessary. Unless it was hiding something much darker. And the more I turned it over, the more I started to question everything. I asked Lauren if she remembered the neighbor we stayed with that day. She did, Mrs. Halpern, an old widow who lived 3 doors down, always smelled like menthol and lilacs. I asked her to find a way to talk to her. She was still alive, still sharp, Lauren said. She paid her a visit. The call came that night. I asked her, Lauren said. I didn't push too hard. Just said I was revisiting old memories. I could hear her pacing. She said Dad came by early that morning, maybe 6:30. Told her mom wasn't feeling well. Said he was taking her to the clinic, and could we stay at her place for the day? I froze. You're sure? I said that. Lauren's voice was flat. She said your mom looked pale. Said she was crying. Said she didn't look sick. She looked scared. That was it. The confirmation I didn't know I was looking for, and the beginning of something I wasn't prepared to find. He lied. Not just after. Before, something had happened that day. Something I was never meant to know, and maybe he meant to take it to the grave. But then why the letter? Why the key? Why now? Because guilt has a way of clawing its way out, even in a man who spent his whole life burying things. I needed answers. More than what was written, more than what was said. And there was only one place left that might hold them. The house, the one we grew up in, the one Dad refused to sell even after retirement, even after Lauren offered to help him move into something smaller. That he said it was full of memories. Now I wondered if it was full of secrets. I told Lauren to check the garage. He used to spend hours there. Said it was his kingdom. No one was allowed to touch his cabinets. But I remembered the layout. Remembered. The tool chest, the old fridge, the paint cans stacked in the corner. If there's something hidden, I said, it'll be there. She FaceTimed me later, holding the phone up as she walked through the dim garage. Dust floated in the sunbeams coming through the slatted window. The floor was cracked, oil-stained. But everything was still where it had been 20 years ago. She opened drawers, moved boxes, tapped on the walls like we were chasing ghosts. Then she found it, behind the shelf with the drill bits, a hollow spot. It wasn't obvious, but it was there. Lauren slipped a screwdriver behind the panel and popped it loose. Inside, a single metal box, locked with a tiny padlock, the kind of lock Dad could pick in under 10 seconds, but never taught me how. Lauren found the key in a mason jar full of nuts and bolts. She opened the box. Inside was a stack of cassette tapes. Not just one, 10 of them, all dated, all marked with my mother's initials. My heart stopped. They were her recordings, maybe diaries, maybe confessions, maybe something worse. I whispered, "Play the first one." Lauren reached for a nearby cassette player, Dad's old one, covered in grime but still functional. She blew into it, pressed the tape in, and hit play. And then we heard it. Her voice, fragile, like glass. "It's August 1st. Michael says I need to rest more. He doesn't understand. I'm not tired. I'm drowning. And I think he's trying to keep me quiet. There's something in the pills. I don't remember things like I used to." Lauren covered her mouth that I couldn't breathe. I told him I wanted help, that I needed to talk to someone outside the house. He said no. Said people would think I was unstable. Said it would ruin the kids. But I can't live in this silence anymore. The audio cut to static. I stepped outside my tent, phone still, in hand, wind slapping my face like I deserved it. The heat didn't touch me. I was shaking. Not from rage. Not yet. From grief. Grief for a mother who asked for help and was denied. Grief for a childhood built on lies and whispers. Grief for the man I had defended, even admired, because I thought he'd done his best. But now I didn't know who he was. And the truth wasn't just painful. It was criminal. I was trained to follow procedures. Chain of command. Evidence. Rational thought under fire. But nothing, not combat drills, not survival training, not deployment, prepares you for discovering your father may have slowly erased your mother. While you were just a kid in the next room, the next few days became a quiet war. Me and Lauren, listening to the tapes one by one, while pretending everything around us was still functioning normally. She in the old house, I in the middle of nowhere, still wearing a name tag tied to a version of myself I no longer recognized. Each tape added another crack to the story we had grown up believing. August 3rd. He brought me tea this morning. Smiled like everything was fine. I don't trust the tea anymore. I think he's medicating me without telling me. I can feel the fog. It comes fast, like waves. August 6th. I tried to call the clinic today. He pulled the phone cord. Said it wasn't necessary. That everything's under control. August 9th. I think he's keeping me here. On purpose. I want to leave. But I can't remember where I put my keys. My purse. My name. And then, August 12th. The last one before the day she died. If anything happens to me, I need someone to hear this. My name is Emily Marie Miller. My husband is Michael Miller. I am not okay. This is not an accident. Please, don't let him silence me forever. Then silence. No static. No noise. Just the tape clicking to an end. Lauren and I sat in a shared stillness, the kind that turns your bones hollow. She looked at me through the screen, and I saw the same thing reflected back that I felt inside. Rage wrapped in heartbreak that we didn't speak for a while. There was nothing left to guess. Our mother didn't just fall apart. She was pushed, and our father didn't just fail her. He engineered her isolation. Her undoing. He stole her voice. And now, with him gone, the only thing left to do was give it back. That we copied every tape. We cataloged them. We spoke to a lawyer Lauren trusted, who listened to 5 minutes of the August 12th recording and went pale. "There's enough here," she said, "to open an inquiry into wrongful death. Maybe more." But there was a problem. The statute of limitations. The missing medical records. The lack of autopsy. Our father had made sure there was no paper trail. He'd buried her twice, once in a coffin and once in silence, and the world wouldn't punish a dead man. Not officially, but I could. Not with violence. Not with revenge. With truth. The kind that unburies. We wrote her story. word for word, as it was, not as we were told. We uploaded the recordings to a secure drive. Lauren called a journalist she knew, someone who wrote for a regional paper, someone who cared about justice more than headlines. And then we sent it, everything, the tapes, the letter, the dates, the deception. The journalist said nothing for 2 days. Then she called. "I've never read anything like this," she whispered. "I don't think this is just a tragedy. I think this is a case study in coercion and emotional captivity. People need to hear this. She needs to be heard." A week later, the story was published online. Title: The Silence He Left Behind. A mother's voice, rediscovered. It spread, local news picked it up. Then national, psychologists weighed in. Survivors of emotional abuse wrote in droves. The inbox filled with messages, stories, tears, people who had lived similar nightmares. Behind quiet doors, and in the center of it all, my mother, her voice, once hidden in an old garage, was now everywhere. That we didn't press charges. There was no one left to prosecute, but we gave her a trial. In the open. And the world listened. That I don't know if that makes up for the years she spent invisible. I don't think anything does, but I do know this. She wasn't erased. Not anymore. And Dad? He didn't get the legacy he wanted. He got the truth. It's strange how grief changes shape. At first, it was sharp. A clean cut. The loss of a father. The silence that followed felt like respect or shock. I couldn't tell. But now, months later, it's something else entirely. Not absence. Not rage. But clarity. And that is the hardest part. Because grief doesn't just mourn the dead, it mourns the illusions we build around them. It mourns who we thought they were, who we were in relation to them. For so long, I saw my father as a quiet man, strong, private, a man who didn't say, "I love you," but showed up when it mattered. A flawed man, maybe, but solid. Now, I know better. He was broken in places he never admitted, controlled by fear, by ego, by his inability to face the storm that lived in my mother. And instead of walking through it with her, he closed the windows and locked the doors, and she suffocated. But she didn't die voiceless. Not anymore. Her words live now, not just in the tapes or the article, but in people. A month after the story went viral, I got a letter from a woman in Kentucky who said, "Your mother saved me. I was planning to end everything. And then I heard her voice. And I changed my mind." Another came from a teenager. "I played one of your mom's tapes for my dad. He finally agreed to let me talk to someone. We're in therapy now." There were hundreds, maybe thousands, each one a spark she left behind. And me, I left the military, not because I was broken, but because I realized I'd been hiding there. Behind duty, behind honor, behind an identity that felt stable when the rest of my life had been anything but. Now I work with a foundation for mental health awareness, especially for families, for men who don't know how to talk, and for women who are told to stay quiet. I speak. I write. I listen. I do what he couldn't. I remember everything now. The way my mother's perfume lingered in the hallway, the way she hummed when she folded laundry, the way her eyes seemed to ask questions no one ever answered. And I forgive her not for leaving, but for carrying that weight alone. I even forgive him, not for what he did, but for being too afraid to face what he couldn't control, because fear is a kind of prison, and he lived there his whole life. But I won't. Not anymore. Sometimes, I still hold the letter. His handwriting. His final confession. The one moment of truth he had the courage to leave me. And sometimes I wonder, if I had read it sooner, would I have hated him? But I didn't. And I don't. I just understand. And in understanding, I'm finally free. Share your thoughts in the comments below. Thank you for your time. If you enjoyed this story, subscribe to the channel. It really helps. Click the video on the screen, and I'll see you there.